Beyond the Clef is presented by Director's Choice.
Welcome to Beyond the Clef. I'm your host, David, and I am here today with Jennifer Gallagher from Shadow Creek High School Choir. How are you doing, Jennifer?
Great, David. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Thanks for being with us. And I know you're taking time out of your rehearsal right now. Right now, we're recording this about 5:30, and we want to get you back to your kids. So I really appreciate you jumping in. But you're in Elephant ISD, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all right, cool. And you just opened up a new program, is that correct?
That's correct. So this is the second year that Shadow Creek has been opened, and it is our first year to have seniors. So
Oh, wow, okay. So they started with freshman, sophomore, junior, or how did that work?
started with 3 grades, and with the junior class last year, the high school that they were moving over from, they got to choose whether they wanted to stay there and finish their last 2 years or come to the new school. And so
Sure.
as a result, sort of our junior class, our current seniors, is kind of a small class, but they're a great group of kids. So we're excited about the new traditions that we're able to start here. So
Yeah, yeah, and I have a similar background in opening new stuff. When I was in middle school, we opened up a new middle school, and then my freshman year in high school, we opened a new band, and so it was the same thing. We had a couple seniors my first year, but I was actually the first full graduating class.
oh, wow.
And then went to a college, went to Texas Tech. And when I got there, they had a new band director. So that after 25 years of the previous person, it was like a new program. First year teaching job, it was at Kingwood Park High School in Humble ISD. So that was, I think they had been in their first or second iteration, same thing as that. And then I opened up Heritage Middle School. So I've always had these new openings. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges that maybe we have faced and starting the traditions up. And actually, that's the fun part to me, is getting to start the new traditions. So what are some of the new stuff and new things that you've gotten to start up from zero, from ground zero?
Well, and like you were describing a little bit about your background, so it's special here at Shadow Creek because one of the junior highs that feeds into this program here is Nolan Ryan, and that was actually my first job.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so my current students, they will have had me almost for a full 7 years.
Wow, that's special.
Yeah, the first freshmen, I'll have been their teacher for that long. So
Wow.
I have a little bit of experience opening new programs just as you do yourself. Some of the challenges I think are that there is nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
When I walked into the band hall for the first time, I had a desk, I had a computer that wasn't set up, period, and that was it. Like, it's the little things, like the locks on our lockers.
Right.
Having to
Right.
get 320 locks and getting that, it's like everything is new.
It's, I don't have any staplers or,
Yeah.
I have to make sure that I order, of course you order music and risers and chairs, and pianos, but you also have to order, you just have everything.
Everything.
We take for granted. When I opened here, I thought I don't have any erasers for my board, just basic things. So
Yeah.
I guess the biggest challenge is having nothing, but it's also kind of neat because it's a blank slate, essentially.
Yeah. And you get to start it. I had a little bit of experience starting over, so I knew, okay, this time I'm going to do it this way, or I'm going to get these things. And so when you get those supplies and you get all that stuff, it's customized to you, which is really nice. And so like right now, I can look around in the band hall and know that every single thing was customized for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the negative is, I think we had a September 1st fiscal year, so the negative was when I started in July 18th. I remember I walked in, I had nothing, no pens, and I had to figure out how to get pens and like borrow and steal.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, we're in our 7th year now. I just ordered music last week that's just kind of standard stuff that most middle schools have, and I'm still kind of trying to catch up. Percussion equipment, even, trying to catch up to our other middle schools that might have been around for, 50 years.
Right. There's a big difference. So I think it's exciting starting those new traditions, but it's also scary because, you have to really be methodical in how you roll out certain programs and don't want to do everything too soon, but at the same time, you want to feel like you're just laying the groundwork for something really great. So it's both, like most things in life that are worth it, it's both really exciting on one hand, but it's also terrifying,
Yeah.
On the other hand. So
Well, what about some of the more exciting things? Like, for instance, I really liked getting to pick our school song and getting to go to those traditions. And the choir director and I worked together, and so we picked the music and then he wrote the words to it for the choir to sing and arranged it out for them. So what kind of things like that do you?
We did a little bit of that. Our alma mater here actually has an interesting history. Not only was I opening this school last year, but I was also having my first baby. And so
Oh, wow.
during that summer in
I can't imagine.
I really took a step back from school and I thought, I'm going to be able to do what I can do. And actually, I told the band director here, I said, writing the alma mater is not one of them. So I kind of, and I actually had a group of my students who they worked on the alma mater themselves, and they
Oh, cool. That's fun.
composing and everything. So actually, the alma mater here is, in a sense, really student created, which is really neat, I think, moving into our future. We have a lot of fun here because our mascot is the Sharks, the Shadow Creek Sharks. So we have a lot of fun with the Jaws theme song and all that kind of stuff. I would say for the choral department, my biggest thing that I have really taken ground on is our leadership team for our students. And so here at Shadow Creek, we do some things kind of traditional in the traditional sense, and then we do some things that are different. So something that's a little different that we have is called a choir council. And so anyone in choir can be on the choir council.
I like that.
Yeah, the choir council is used for a lot of different things, helping out at junior high concerts. They pretty much run the program. And then we, of course, do have officers, our president and vice presidents, those kinds of things that are elected. But essentially what it is, it's a service first program. So at the end of the year when our new officers are elected, they're not allowed to run for certain offices unless they have so many hours as an active council member.
Okay.
So
That's
it really
cool.
makes it about service and not
I like
just
that a lot.
contest. And then it also, and I had really active officers at the middle school level, but there were a lot of kids who didn't ever get voted into anything for whatever reason, but they were still good kids. And the council kind of enables me to reward the kids who they might not get voted to be president. However, they can still sign up to help at events. And pretty much the way the students earn hours is by coming to the meetings that are monthly, signing up. They, like I said, they usher at events that we're hosting. They work on the stage crew. They stamp music in the library. They can be on the uniform crew. So the kids really run with that. And the officers that are elected, they serve as the committee chairs of the different events. So for example, we're having an 8th grade lock-in this next week. Where we invite the 8th graders from our junior high programs that feed us, and we have a social event. So one of the vice presidents is in charge of that, and she has kind of run with it, and they made the theme. They meet as a committee, and they plan everything. I really didn't have to do
That's great.
So that's been a really big impact just on how the culture of our program has started, and just the high schoolers. It amazes me the things that they can kind of do and run with, and their ideas are really good. So, and the other thing about the council that I like is that if you're not an officer, you can kind of step on and off the council at any point. So for example, if a student is really busy with football or marching band, we have a lot of kids that are involved in multiple things, then they don't have to be on the council, in the fall, but then once that season is over, they can step on, and it's kind of a more fluid thing, in terms of what the kids, want to be involved in. So
yeah, that's fantastic.
yeah, that's been a really, really huge help to the program as it's been developing, and just gives the kids a lot of ownership and pride over what we're doing here. Mm-hmm.
Well, now tell me one thing that I struggled with when I first got to my current position, and my compatriots at the other middle school could probably attest to this, but I struggled a lot with organization. So how do you feel like you really ground yourself, especially having a baby right at that time and a newborn? How do you get organized, and what are your thoughts on that?
I personally, I'm pretty type A. All of my friends would tell you that. And I have always been a pretty organized person. However, just like, we see students that have a natural inclination towards music reading and pitch matching and singing, for example, on my end. However, a student that doesn't have those abilities naturally can still with a great instructor, learn some of those things as they go along the way. And I think that organization is the same. And that's something that I feel pretty strongly about. And it is true. Some people are, like myself, more inclined toward it. But I feel like a lot of people, first of all, the notion, well, I'm just disorganized. That's just the way I am. But which, is true for a lot of people. However, I feel like there are kind of skills and habits to put in place for yourself to help you become more organized rather than just, oh, well, I'm just not organized. So the first thing to me, the first step is admitting, right, if you have a problem or something. So
I think a lot of people in our profession could do that, but maybe not about necessarily organization.
Yeah. So, I think admitting, hey, I am not very organized. What are some things I can do to get better? And I think that the first thing for me is I really believe in pen to paper. And I just think that there's research that's done when you write it down, it just goes better. This doesn't mean I don't use online calendars and online to-do lists and apps on my phone, but I am a big paper planner believer. And most people who, if they don't use a paper planner, they just haven't found the right one for them. And there's all just different kinds of designs and ways to kind of plan your day.
I have just these little quick journals that I can keep in my back pocket. They're nice. Just pull it out, write it down real quick. It's easy enough, right?
So writing it down is my number one thing as far as organization goes. And then I really do a lot of front work in terms of planning. And this goes for, I guess, the paperwork that goes into being a director, especially head director, it's just overwhelming for anyone. If they're organized or not organized. And so I do a lot of front work during the summer when I can, relax and do things kind of at my own pace, when I'm not so frenzied just dealing with the day-to-day running of a program. So I do a lot of that paperwork, not necessarily filling it out all completely, but I do a lot of it during the summer, and I organize it so that when I'm really busy during the year, I already have it kind of ready to go. And this enables me to not miss deadlines and not get confused about where I am. So I really try to break down, it just seems really insurmountable when you think of everything you have to do. So I really try to take an approach of working backwards, and so rather than starting with, okay, August 1st and kind of going through, I'll set the calendar and then I'll go to May and I'll say, okay, here are all the forms I'm going to need in May for all the events that we're doing. And then I'll work backwards. Okay, April, then all of that is filed, and it's really easy to maintain. It's a good system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I've subscribed to the methodology of getting things done. I think it's by David Allen. And I actually read the book about 10 years ago, kind of did it, and then he just had a redo of it in a new edition. And I really... I'm trying it. New year, new me, right? And so I'm trying it right now. Maybe any viewers could call me on that in a couple months and see if I actually did it. But the general methodology is get everything out of your brain and put it down in what he calls an inbox. And just always write it down, always put it somewhere, and then have a system of trust that you're going to go through that inbox later. Because there's so many times, like I'm in rehearsal or I'm in my beginner clarinet class or flute class or whatever, and there's something that goes on and I real quick jot something down because, it gets in your brain and you think, oh, I need to do that. Well, then it stresses you out. But if you write it down, then you remember what it is. But how many times have I done this thing and then this thing exploded at the end of class and whatever? You get back to your office, you're like, what was I having to do? I can't remember.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So just keeping on track. And then I would say, that's kind of a big, broad way to organize your year. But I think day to day, just like what you said, having a system for dealing with everything that you're supposed to get done is hard. Yeah. It's very difficult. So my favorite book on organization and kind of getting your life together, so to speak, is called Time Management Magic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's by Lee Cockrell. And he was he's retired now, but he was the executive vice president of Disney World. And he kind of has a fascinating story. He also has a podcast just about leadership and organization, but he has had an interesting life, as well as he has experience managing just hundreds of people and having lots of people under him, and just his style and the way he just kind of has a no-nonsense, way about how he lives and leads is really interesting. It speaks to me a lot. So that is a book that I suggest to a lot of people if they're, and it's very short as well.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah, to people who are just wanting more help with how to get more done in a day, really.
Great. I'm gonna have to check that out. I've heard of it, but I haven't ever actually gotten to read it. So now you mentioned that you had a baby.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And so how old are they now?
My daughter Lily, she is a year and a half. Yeah, she's a year and a half now.
Great. And so tell me a little bit about that and what it's like being, we do a job that's a lot more than an 8 to 5. Tell me what it's like having a newborn baby, some recommendations you might have to some people that might be doing that in the future. I don't have any kids yet, but, I'm not sure. But also your perspective as a woman, too.
Yeah, first of all, it's just hard. It's just hard knowing, I have a lot of wonderful colleagues who at some point they were head director of a busy program and they took steps back to stay at home with their students. And I really examined, myself. Actually, my husband was also a choir director. And so both of us were head directors before we had our daughter. He was at a high school and I was at a junior high. So we were both head directors, both working, like you said, those long hours beyond that, 8 to 5, weekends, nights, those kinds of things. And so when we were going to have my daughter, we really took a look at what we wanted and what our goals were. I, knew that I was trying to come to this new high school to open it. And so we had made the decision, that one of us would stay home, whether that would be me or him. We also just talked about, well, what would it look like if we were both working? So just with your significant other, your spouse, just an open conversation. I think there's a lot of mom guilt for sure about working. I knew personally that, me coming to work, it's hard for me, but it also makes me a better mom because working is something, that I really love a lot. And I kind of would lose myself a little bit. That's, of course, not for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
I also feel like people just need to give themselves a lot of grace just in terms of what they can get done at work and what they can get done at home. It's hard. It's very hard. Opening the program too, though, I had some just leeway as far as what I could offer. And, because the parents and students came from the program that I, started myself, I was very honest with them and my building principal and the team, of fine arts people that I worked with, that I wasn't going to stay exponentially at work. And I wasn't going to just give all my hours. I had a different lifestyle than I did before.
And I venture to say you're probably more productive because that's how I feel. I'm more productive if I have more time at home to not be at band.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I really had to crack down, I was organized before, but I felt like I had to be even more organized now. And just a few small things that I do are I really, really try to turn off work when I'm not at work. Like you just mentioned, I do not have my work email synced to my phone. And that took a few years of kind of bad parent emails and, staying up late, thinking about what I was going to do and respond. And I just realized, what, there's nothing. So, and there really, since I did that, several years ago, there's really nothing that I've missed or a deadline or anything. And if I know I have a pressing deadline, I can check my email, but it's not just right there on my phone.
Yeah.
And then the other
I always hate that I sometimes my email is on my phone, but I don't check it at home at all. But sometimes just as accidentally I'll hit that button. I'm like, no, don't look.
Yeah. And then the other small thing is that I set an alarm. And when that alarm goes off, I go home. And sometimes my office is not as clean that I would like, and my classroom's not as clean, and I just leave it undone. And there really is just giving myself that deadline. It's time to be home. It's time to go home. Now, of course, I can't avoid, some things like musical rehearsal tonight, or when it's musical season or when we're really busy. There are times when I know I have to work Saturdays and I'm going to be with my students at contests and everything. But when I'm not, I really try to be present with my family as much as possible. And then when I don't meet that, I'd still just give myself grace in all things because, the next day is a new day. And if I'm not perfect and I go home and let my daughter watch Moana 3 times. That's what her movie that she wants to watch now, because I'm tired, from a long day. Then I just give myself grace. And then the next day we just try to do better, because that's all you can ask of yourself, and as a mom, it's hard. And as a woman, there's pressure and it's different. And I've actually had, people mention, well, isn't that hard going to be, being a woman and being a mom and opening this school, and yeah, it is. It's absolutely hard, but can you do it? Yeah. And you just have to make priorities and really think through with your family, what's best for you. So that would just be some small advice there. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Well, I want to get you back to your rehearsal. I really appreciate you taking the time to come talk to us. Some great gems of info in that whole session. So thank you so much, Jennifer Gallagher from Shadow Creek High School Choir. We appreciate you being on.
Thanks, David. Have a good night.
You too.